So over the past, I'm 57. I know I don't look it, thank you. Over the past 57 years, things have changed considerably in the food industry, and especially in the farming industry. And nothing, in my opinion, in our country in the last 57 years has changed for the better. That's just my opinion. And as a result of things what have changed, in my opinion, for the worse, we've got no one really has an understanding of how to grow food anymore, how to preserve food, how to even cook food, and even what is food. We get on the farm. I used to have a classic example. One day, 2 coaches come, 100 kids. We broke them into groups of 10, and then walking around with a teacher or a group. And the group I've got, I walked down past the muck heap, and I had a patch about the size of this, which was wheat, barley, oats. And I said to the kids, and they were fairly ripe, and I said to the kids, I stopped and I said, kids, can I ask if anybody knows what this is? And they're all, no? This is grass. I said, no. I said, oh, let me show you. I said, this one's wheat. And if you've got this one, this makes bread. We can grind this to make flour, we can make bread. And this one's barley, this makes daddy's lager. And this one's oats, it makes your breakfast. And the kids were fascinated. And we'd done all that, collecting the eggs from the chicken pens and everything. And when they went to get on the bus that night, the kids are all getting on the bus, and one of the teachers says to me, she said, thanks ever so much for what you've done today. She said, that bit with them grasses, she said, that was brilliant. I didn't know any of that. And I thought, Jesus, you're in your 30s, woman, and you're teaching our kids what's right and wrong. We're in trouble. So how did we get to here? Because that's one of the questions. Well, everyone in the room, I'm going to assume, knows who the WEF are. Everyone knows what the Agenda 2030 is. I got introduced to Agenda 21 when I was 21. And a friend of mine said to me, bear in mind, before the main part of the internet started, a friend of mine used to come around, Dennis, I genuinely thought was as crazy as a box of frogs. And he'd come round, hat down, Mark, I've got something for you to look at. He'd get a little bit of paper out with a website address on it, go to the library and check that out, and he'd bring me articles out of newspapers, and he'd say, you've got to read this, you need to know, you've got kids. And he was adamant, I'm never going to have kids, never did. And he said, I'm never going to have kids, he said, because the world we're bringing them into, he said, that's terrible, what all the things they're going to do. Now, one of the things what worried him more than anything was about the lack of food as we progress towards 2030. And I naively said, don't be stupid, Dennis. You're never going to get farmers to stop producing food. Roll on 2025, when we live in the age where we can convince farmers to grow food that has no value, wheat, barley, sugar beet, oat, maize, rapeseed, all of those have no value as food. They're all sold to the supermarket supply chain to make shite we don't need anyway. So, as a result, no food gets produced. So, I, along this journey, have gone, well, why are the farmers not producing food? Now, we all know subsidies came into play. Bad thing should have never happened. All the money from the supermarkets was raped away from the farmers by the supermarkets, and all those subsidies went to build superstores for Tesco's, Sainsbury's and everybody else. Now, as a result of all that happening and the farmers not earning any money, they kept going down the same road. And for me, the stupidity of, is a classic example, 1972, wheat is worth £132 a tonne. We're now in 2025 and it ain't worth no more. But then cost of production was probably 40 quid a tonne, and now we're sitting at £160 a tonne cost of production. And we're going to sell it for 130? Well, one of my mates said to me the other day, he said, I've had a right result. I said, what's that? He said, I've sold all my wheat for milling wheat. I've got 168 a tonne. You've earned £8 a tonne. Well done. And you're one of the only farmers in the country to achieve that. How often can we go to work and think to ourselves, I'm going to lose £100 an acre. We've got, like James, who we know up in Scotland, Grimsby really well, he's got 5,000 acres. You're going to lose £100 an acre per year on 5,000 acres. How many years do you continue to keep going before you go, actually, I might find another solution to this? Now, for me, I've come from the point where I am a fingertip farmer. I don't have no tractors. We have a very small space of ground to grow on, and we grow nothing but vegetables on extremely nutritious soil. So we know that we're growing something really good. It's got loads of nutrition in it and people benefit from eating it. We are chemical-free farmers. I'm not organic because I refuse to pay the system £500 a year to give me a certificate to tell me I've done the job what I've done anyway. So decisions from my side have to be made because I have farmers, used to have farmers come to the farm and we would teach them how to grow vegetables. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Teach farmers how to grow vegetables. And we would teach farmers how to grow vegetables and earn £30,000 an acre per year. And then you look at it and you go, I've got 5,000 acres, I lose £100 an acre, ain't I clever? I've got 2 acres of ground and earn 60 grand a year. And this level of insanity, what's been bred into farmers, and, you know, DEFRA, is there anyone from the farming community in the room? Because, you know, no? DEFRA are just a disaster. When we had the agricultural ministry, at least they were on our side. DEFRA is a governmental department that is sent to just destroy the farming community. No time for them at all. They're morons. And then we've got the National Farmers Union. NFU stands for no fecking use. That's the point of fact. They are useless. So how did we get from there 100 years ago where we made nigh on 100% of our food? Yes, we live differently. I understand you didn't have strawberries 52 weeks a year. You didn't have asparagus available 52 weeks a year. You know, I understand that. But people were not dying of the illnesses they are at present. So if we can collectively agree that things were better then, and farmers have got to this point, how do we change it back? Because that's the next step. So for me, as we've been on this tour, and I say to this to people, you know, when we left home, fair to say, Gloria, my talk was an hour and a half long, and about an hour and 15 minutes of it was about the doom and gloom of what's going on in farming. Okay? And there weren't nothing good to say. This is how bad it is. Like it or lump it, you know, just so you know, by 2030, guys, you're going to be starved out of the country. Congratulations. However, then we went on tour and we travelled down to Truro. We've been down to Land's End. We've been up to John O'Groats, and we've been everywhere in between. We've visited hundreds of farmers. We've spoken in front of 20,000 people. What I can tell you is that from the public's point, the public are ready for change. The public want to see a better quality food. They want to make sure, it's fair to say, you know, for those younger than me in the room, I apologise, or if you're older, whatever, but we're all about a similar age, let's be honest. It upsets me to the fact that my kids and grandkids are having to deal with what we've created, because we have created this. Not knowingly, but whatever, we now know what's going on. We've got to do something about this. Because I don't know about you, but I look at my kids and they certainly ain't up for a fight. They do not even want to have an argument with anybody because they're now so freaking woke, you know. So if that's the case, and they were brought up by me and they're still woke. As my daughter said to me, she said, not everyone's as self-opinionated as you, Dad. Well, ain't that a shame? So if we're going to make the changes what are necessary, what do they need to look like? Because that's the thing, as we've travelled around the country, farmers, everyone, and I would have said over the course of the last, 10 years, every farmer, when you talk to them, they go, you look at them chemtrails. They go, there's no such thing. You do realise it's dropping all that shite on your field and killing your grain off, and that's why you've got low production and low rainfall, and you've got this. And they go, that's not happening. Farmers are waking up very slowly, but they are waking up. And those who are waking up are starting to understand there's got to be a different way to farm. Now, for me, a different way to farm comes in every aspect of farming, every aspect. This isn't just about we don't use chemicals. I hate to say this because in some certain circumstances, chemicals can be required. And I hate to say that as a chemical-free farmer, but I make sure weeds don't grow on my bit. It's easy. When you've got 2 acres, you can weed it easy. You've got 5,000 acres, it takes a bit of a while. But to me, that is one of the issues. The farms have got too big. When we were kids and most farms were 50, 100 acres, they could keep a better eye on things. And they had a dozen people worked on a 100-acre farm because they were earning money. And then we've got to make these cutbacks because we're not earning any money, and still didn't change anything. So if the public wants change and wants better quality food, that ain't going to come from the supermarkets. That is an absolute certainty. And if the farmers want to make a change, then something's got to give. Now, we come from East Anglia. Most of the farmers that we know grow wheat, barley, sugar beet, oats, maize and rapeseed. Now, can I ask a question of the room? When did you last want to buy a ton of sugar beet?
Oh, that was about...
Never. So, farmers aren't no longer producing en masse what we actually want. If I stand on the consumer side of the fence here, as a consumer, and I want, my local farms to grow potatoes and carrots and onions and meat and all the things, they're not growing that.